this is Paul with To Live For, and I'm really honored to introduce two dear friends who I've known for a long time here in the Portland area, Nancy Barba and Cynthia Wheelock, who are co-owners of Barba and Wheelock Architecture Preservation Design, which is located in downtown Portland. They have worked together for over 20 years. They are business partners and they are life partners. Welcome to Live For.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you taking the time during your day to share your story with our audience. So there are kind of like three focuses I wanted to nail today in talking with both of you. To Live For is about passion. It's about excitement, and it's about sharing that passion that we have for whatever we're doing. And it's also about how do we get to that passion. So in my mind, there might be two levels to your passion around the architecture. One is architecture itself. So I would love to hear from both of you where your passion and your love for architecture came about, how that came about.
You should go first.
I should go first, okay. Well, I lost my mom at a young age, and one of the things that was sort of a grounding moment for me was that my next door neighbor was this very maternal, wonderful mother of 5 children. So I kind of was going over to their house a lot, and she had designed a house with an architect. And so she introduced me at a very young age, about 8 or 9 years old. We'd go over and do house plans under her tutelage.
Wow, that's
and
cool.
so it really was this very grounding, wonderful, nurturing environment. And so I became passionate about it by 9 years old, and I knew that's what I wanted to do.
And did you stay on that path from 9 years old on?
All through, yeah. I questioned it back and forth. I said, is this really right for me? I questioned it, but I just went right into architecture school and just kept going.
So we'll come back to the fact that you didn't deviate.
Yeah.
That's unusual. Most people that I've talked to in these interviews, they have kind of like gone off that path of their passion, and they've come back to it. So I'm gonna talk a little bit about how you elected to stay on that path and what that was like for you. And Cynthia, so for you, how did your passion with architecture emanate?
Well, that's a really good question, and I don't have anything exciting like Nancy to tell you on that, and I've thought about this a lot, and it's really difficult to figure it out, but I think that in some ways it chose me. And the reason I say that is because if I had to define myself in one word, I would say dichotomy. Because my life is all about balance, bringing, my spirit world in with the logical world, the left and the right brain, finding balance, mysticism and intellect. It's all about kind of bringing balance in. And so I think that my love of art and my love of kind of science must be where this is all about, because I think that through my career, it's all a bit about bringing balance in from the creative side, which is the art side, to kind of the science technical side, which they're very different, but in architecture, they're required.
Right. So you have to have a deep understanding of the art, the appreciation for that, but it's not going to work as art if the science doesn't support the structure.
And it's a struggle. That's in there lies the struggle that architects have. And I think that my life story is all about the struggle between the two and bringing balance to my life.
So when you went to college, did you already know then that architecture, or did that emerge?
No, I started out thinking that I'd become a child psychologist. Completely different.
Very different.
Yeah.
But you use psychology when you work with your clients and
Absolutely.
your contractors.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Yeah. So as a child, Cynthia, did you have any glimpses of this, or?
When I was 15, I started meditating. I learned the practice of meditation twice a day. And it has been paramount on my life, but I bring my life back to that moment where I chose to do that. And what that did was that through that practice of meditation, it brought me into my spirit world. Actually brought me into a religious world. And at that point in time, I got very involved in this group. through school. It was a Christians in Fellowship and University of Christians and Universities and Schools, or something like that. And what happened was it was very stagnant. And I had to give up meditation to do it because you couldn't practice kind of two idols. You couldn't believe in two idols. And so at that time, I gave everything up. It's like, I just gave it all up. I gave up meditation, I gave up religion. And so from that point on, became a life search. And I think I got into architecture, I think, through the love of art. And I think that it was really searching for something that fit me. And I think in some ways it could have been anything. It wouldn't have had to have been architecture, it could have been anything, because it's really through the practice of whatever I'm doing that I find my passion. It's
Right.
not the work, it's through the work. It's where it takes me that I find my passion.
So it's really being in the moment of the process.
It's totally always about, for me, being in the moment, because being in the moment is where God lives. It's in the heart. And when you're in the heart, that's where God is. And that's where creativity comes from.
So it's fascinating
Wow.
that I get to talk to both of you about this, because I think as a child or as children, you had an early age experience where you learned to be open through the meditation and all that.
Yes.
And in your case,
My case was very different, and another facet of my coming of age was part of being a motherless child was searching for community around me, searching for this nurturing group. So having these neighbors that were very close knit and being able to go in and out of their homes and be part of their families, and meanwhile I have my own family, I learned to love that neighborhood and community and the way it was connected and interconnected. So the idea of being involved in projects, like fast forward 20, 30 years, where you have these interconnected moments and the sense of serving community and creating community, it's all part of those foundations. So we approach this from a very different angle, where if I just went back to just the architecture, it would be about making spaces that are comforting for people. And everyone says, well, then you went off and designed houses. I said, no, I actually don't even like, or I did for a long time, like designing houses, because they're way too personal and not enough for community.
right.
Which is interesting. So now Cynthia's brought me back into the personal with house design, and it's fabulous. It's much more volatile and more, it's not as rational, which for me, finding a way to make my world rational in a place that wasn't so rational growing up was really important. But now it's kind of that, I like to say Cynthia's softened me. That sort of brings in that dimension of being more grounded with people and one-on-one in houses and residential and such. But I still love public work because of that connection with society.
Right. Yeah, and you know personally that we just moved, but I would say that the house that we're now renting has done a very different job of creating community for us. So
Yeah.
I see community in house
Right.
as well
Right.
now. When you go back to your childhood, you were open, or you know your path kind of meandered, but you went straight on into architecture. That was really your pattern.
Right.
Your path. Was there someone, I guess maybe it was your neighbor who you ended up connecting with, but that was your mentor and your inspiration? And the same with you. Can you look back and say, that was my hero back then? That's the person that encouraged me to be me.
Yeah. Mine's really a composite. It's that neighbor and another neighbor and other people that were around it, so I can make a composite of that. And I don't know if I'm getting off topic, but that also had a very strong religious upbringing from the beginning. And so that sort of cataclysmic moment when my mother died, I stayed with her religion, and I've stayed right through with that, and it's a connection to the spirit world, because they say when you lose a parent when you're young, they say that the spirit or the angels stay around you and guide you, and that's very much been this guiding force in my life,
Right.
which is really interesting. And so there are times when I didn't
I
know
don't know
this.
what you mean by exterior angles stay around us very much.
Siri's
Speaking
always
of
with us.
Spirit,
See, exterior around. How did you even get that word?
I don't know.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Yeah,
how did you even get that?
Mystery.
yeah. There's points where I don't see or feel that spirit, and then there's times when it comes in and it just keeps hitting me over the head. Like here are all these coincidences adding up to a new path I'm supposed to take, and okay, I've got to pay attention to this. So it's those quiet moments where I sort of put that together and realize that there's guidance all the time, that's been happening all my life, and I just have to pay more attention to it. And then I go back into my little world and forget about it, and then back in.
So you would say your mentors were
Community,
and spirit guides.
spirit guides, and these very strong women figures, and my father. My father's a very strong personality, so sort of how you get through life.
Right. How about you, Cynthia?
Well, I think it's fair to say that I always wanted to have somebody that was more like that, like a guide to me that would show me, like how to live my life in some ways. But early on, I realized that I didn't conform to any societal script. I was on my own, and I had to write my own life, which for a teenager is pretty traumatic. But it really has made me who I am, I think, today. And so I would say that I think going inward, I mean, in some ways Nancy and I are very similar, that we go to the same place. I think I'm maybe more aware of going to the same place through my meditation. But I go inside, down into my core through my meditation, and there I think I find it. It's not like someone channels to me or someone speaks to me, or all of a sudden I come out of a meditation with like, I know now what I should do. It's not that concrete. It's much more like an awareness, like a finer level of perception. And through that touching base of that finer level of perception for me, I think that's been my guide.
So you're knowing, your inner knowing.
Right.
Yeah. And that started, a long time ago. And I think that I deviated a little bit from that path because I really got into my head, architecture and head, and it's taken me quite a long time to like put that aside.
Yeah.
It's almost like I kind of made my success as an architect, and once you can do that, you can kind of relax into the art. I think it's an interesting process. Architecture is a very interesting profession.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the architecture side, because there are all sorts or types of architects, but yours is specific to preservation. Generally, I mean, most of your work is preservation.
A large part, but not only. We do quite a few new projects, and a lot of them have the underpinnings of some existing building, but sometimes it's a brand new building. And most of them have this thread of sustainability in them, and community, public service, social change.
Additions,
Additions.
historic buildings.
Right. But definitely historic is a big factor in our life. People see us as only that, so we kind of have to gird that that's not all we do, because it's also about new infill projects in historic districts and even new buildings out in fields, but we don't do that many of them because it's not that green, and we try to stay away from them unless there's some compelling reason.
I would say that our knowledge of preservation, it has required us to have a strong knowledge of styles throughout history. And that has enriched our architecture, new architecture. Wouldn't you say that to be true?
Yeah.
And so I think we get a lot of projects because people trust us, that either they have a historic house and they want an addition, or they're in a historic neighborhood, or they want a style, but they want it to be more modern, new technologies. And so I think we appeal to those kinds of people, probably more so than if we were strict preservationists, which would only be doing preservation projects on existing buildings, or we branched further.
Did you both have the passion for the preservation piece, and that being an underpinning to most of your work, or did that emerge?
I think for me, I fought it. I got, it came to, again, one of these things where it just came to me. When I moved to Ann Arbor, Michigan, I became very close friends with a family, and one of the women had an architectural firm, and we started doing Borders, books, and music stores, but it was a preservation firm. But at that time, we were putting the store into historic or old existing buildings.
Right.
And so that's where, so I was brought in to work with them. And so I fought the historic preservation part. But I was there for a long time, and I joined Nancy, and I fought it for a long time. Because for me, I think that even though I spent a year abroad with my family during a sabbatical and traveled all through Europe and loved historic buildings, I wasn't drawn to that initially. And so it came to me, and I think that through that coming to me, I have found a very deep meaning through my own art through it. But I don't think it wasn't on my own, at least that I know of, that I was drawn to it like Nancy was drawn to it.
And I was definitely drawn to it. I was 14 years old when I joined Historic Annapolis and was a tour guide and grew up in Annapolis, so I had this rich history around me. And my family is very, very keen on history and tradition and such, so that sense of history going before you has always been very much a part of my life. And so to be immersed in a community that has historic buildings, it just feels like the right place for me to be.
Right.
So that's been central. Yeah.
But in your conversation a couple of minutes ago, you used a couple of words that I think are pretty key, but it's really important to both of you that your work promotes social change.
Right.
And then the other piece that is part of your mission statement is that you want to help grow or expand human spirit through your work.
That's huge for me.
So I was going to
Yeah.
ask each of you to take a part of that. So maybe you want to take the human spirit part and talk about that a little bit, and maybe the social change part. If you guys are willing to divide and conquer, or if you both want to tackle both, that's fine with me. But I would love to hear more
And I have an
about that.
example if it helps you.
Why don't you? Nancy's always good at priming me. So
Yeah. I don't know if you remember this, but when we worked on the American Eagle Waldorf School,
Yeah.
we did the first building on their new campus in Freeport. And instead of the normal rectilinear boxes that school classrooms can be, in the Waldorf education, they want no parallel walls because they don't want to trap the energy or the spirit. And we also did higher ceilings than normal that had some slope to them and higher light windows on the walls. And when one of the major scholars came in from the Waldorf education to see this space for the first time, it also had wood floors, which was fabulous because the group really wanted to have wood floors. He walked in and he looked around in his classroom and he said, "You've done such a great job. You didn't trap the angels. You didn't contain. There's room for them to move." And it was just so fulfilling. Like, we didn't really know we were doing that. We knew we were giving this sense of space, but the way he voiced it, and it was just wonderful. It's like,
That's beautiful imagery.
yeah.
It is.
So that's an example of that. I don't know if you have other ones of human spirit.
I think that's a tough question. I have never really thought about that.
Well, how did that become part of your mission statement? How did you guys,
The social change piece?
or the human
building
spirit
human
piece?
spirit, yeah.
It's
It just
who
evolved
we
to
are,
that,
too.
The social change piece kind of engenders that in some way because you're elevating human spirit when you do that.
It's where our interests are. It's where our heart lives.
Another example is the project we just finished up last year for the Yarmouth Library, where they had no...
That was your project?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
They had no entranceway. You just came in the door and you were right there in the lap of the librarians, basically at the front desk. There was no place for socialization before you got there. And yet it was a very wonderful, connected community of librarians and public, and people love going there because they feel that wonderful inviting spirit, but there was no place for people to do that on their own. So we created a new entranceway, and it was Cynthia's idea to enclose it. They wanted it to be just an open people porter, carport, or porch. And she said, you could enclose this. That room has been so critical to them. Now it's this major mixing bowl, and you get to sit there and enjoy the garden that you had to previously leave and go out into. Now it's like part of where you can sit and feel out to the garden. You can watch people come and go. People set up bake sales there. It's just, the litany of what the librarian has told us happens in that space is like an arm's length of all the different things that people have found to do with it, and it previously didn't exist. So in that way, just creating the space for this to happen and making the connections that people weren't able to make before in many, many ways, it's critical.
Just to
Doing that.
connect a couple dots, to live for, we did an interview in that,
Yeah, to live for.
That's funny.
in that walkway.
See, yeah.
And it was about community. And
Right.
people walk by and,
Oh, it's huge,
So-
yeah, yeah.
so that's on our
It's a
website.
real, that's
Wonderful.
funny, oh, that's so
Yeah.
funny.
So,
Didn't even know it.
You're life partners. And first of all, I would love to hear the story about how you met.
Oh, jeez.
Ooh, right here. Right here.
Right in the
We met right
space.
here.
Really?
My
Yeah.
desk was there and Cynthia's desk was there.
Mhm.
So was it not your firm then? Were you guys working for someone, were you working for someone
I
else
was working for
then?
Nancy.
It was my firm, and
Yeah.
Cynthia's friends connected us and said, you should come to, you should talk to Nancy Barba, because she has a firm
Up in
that's
Portland.
similar to yours, and I think you'll enjoy working with each other. So we sat there quietly for about 6 months, thinking we were just working together, and then suddenly sparks flew, and the rest
Yeah.
was history.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So what's it like? What's it like
Oh my God.
working together and then going home and
You
being
know,
together?
people ask
and-
that all the time, and Paul, the only thing I can say that makes sense to people is that that's the way we started.
True.
So it's always been that way. So it's kind of like, it's the baseline. So I think that because we started that way, we don't know any other relationship here between us any other way.
Do you take work home? Do
Oh
you get into
yeah, we take
conversations?
both ways. We take work home, we can't help it.
We try to limit it, bringing it home.
Mm.
Try to limit it, but it's not.
I think the most frustrating thing is that I really don't have anyone to go to and say, you wouldn't believe what she did today. That's probably the hardest part, but you know,
But you do have someone to go to. You go to
do,
yourself in your
absolutely.
meditation.
It works,
and
it
you go-
works.
you go
Meditation's
inward.
been wonderful.
oh, it's been huge for me. Yeah, it
Yes.
has.
So would you say that you both are living in your passion right now?
That's, you know, you use that word a lot, and I think that, there's a lot of pressure around that word. And it's a very heated word, I think. A lot of people have their own meaning of what that means. And for me, passion is much more quiet. For Nancy, I think it's not so quiet, it's bigger.
Grab the bull by the
It's-
horns, right?
But mine is much more quiet. Mine is kind of going inside and really like all of a sudden just my eyes are closed and I have a mantra. And through that whole process, what's happening is that there's this amazing connection I'm making. Like I make connections. All of a sudden I become aware of, about a person. And some people might say that's channeling. But I don't think people or spirits are channeling to me. I think it's just all of a sudden I become aware.
Right.
It's like a different sense. Like we can feel, we can smell, we can hear, we can, taste. But this is like another sense to me. It's like I start to become aware. And I don't feel like it's coming from anywhere else. Like I'm touching down into this all knowledge, all knowing center of myself. And I come out and it's like I put things together, and that's passion to me. It's like it comes from inside. And then I can come out into the world and I actually make a difference in people's lives. The way in which I come to them, my energy, or what I say, or how I look, or whatever it may be. I make these connections with people, and for some reason, that's where my passion is, in that part of my life.
So we're going to come back to that in a
Yeah,
second.
that's fabulous.
And just to follow up, like we did an interview yesterday, and one of the people that we interviewed said the 3 most important words that she grew up with were "know thyself." And so it sounds like you're really focusing on that piece. You're aware of what's in here, and that, like you said, that's your passion, because
That's my passion.
that's where it all emanates from for you.
Yes,
That's beautiful.
that's right.
Wow.
And about you?
It's interesting because we are definitely, I don't know if we're polar opposites, but it's like, you're an introvert too, and I'm an extrovert, but we're both right on that line, which is interesting. So I can slip into being an introvert and writing and journaling and photography and be in my introverted place. Or I come out and the thing that I've been most passionate about, it was architecture when I started into it. And about 20 years in, I was like, this is not enough. This is not enough. What I'm doing is not enough. And what I've done for the last 10 years is rediscover my roots in environmentalism and combining that with sustainable preservation and really understanding that aspect of existing in historic buildings and how to make them sustainable and how to live sustainably around in community where you're not taking down buildings that have more value staying, and trying to make those connections. So if I've been passionate about any aspect of architecture or of life, it's being an environmental activist, knowing architecture that I know and how to do that. And I took that to teaching a class last year at UMA to young architects and got them all fired up. I've done lectures up at
I
UMA.
can absolutely see you
It's
teaching.
just, they
good.
really get charged up, and hopefully they're gonna go out and change the world. There were only 12 students in my class, but hopefully that's gonna move the next generation forward. And here are the places that I don't have information on. Here's where you should drill down in your studies, and here's what's not been done yet in our world. And so I just am passionate about that aspect of combining the two. And I think if anything, people don't come to us for that work, which is, people don't ask for that. And I just am hungry for, I want to do a LEED platinum building on a historic building. I want those projects. And it's like, please, let us show you that. Because it's always, for the first few years, it was guerrilla green. Like, clients wanted something and you just do the absolute best job you could. You meet the budget and the schedule and you'd stay with that. But now it's more overt and people just don't ask for it. They're going to the young architects a decade down from us that are doing all new buildings and don't know how to do both, holding on to community. So I hope I'm not too much on a soapbox, but this is definitely something I'm passionate about because I get to pull in the environmentalism that was so important and is so important.
Well, one of the questions that I try to ask everybody that I interview, and it can be challenging because I'm really going to ask you to come up with one, piece of wisdom or advice, but you just talked about what you're really passionate about, and you did as well, Cynthia. If there's someone listening and they're not quite sure how to get to that point, how to find that joy, how to find that passion, no matter what it may be, can you give them one piece of wisdom that may help them?
I'm going to say, I'm going to tell you what I think, and I'm going to guess that you probably hear this from a lot of people that are centered, balanced people, and that is that don't look outside yourself. You're never going to find it there. It's all in here, and there's many ways to get to that part. And you can be a very religious person, and through your connection with your God or you pray, or you can get there. Meditation is what I do. You can be a runner. You can be somebody that's out there in the nature, and what that is they, through that world or life that they have, they are ultimately coming in to themselves, and they find it there inside, and you can't find it outside yourself. So look inside.
Thank you.
I don't know if I have anything to add to that.
You don't have to.
Okay. No, I think I said it with a sustainable preservation. It's sort of like finding something that really makes you get up in the morning, that you feel so important that that's what you want to be doing.
Right.
And I'm not saying that quite
No,
right,
I think that's right.
it's
Nancy,
like finding something that really charges you up, finding that one piece of element that really makes you feel like you're making a difference in the world, and then going with it.
that's right. For you, that's it.
Yeah.
She gets up and she's going to make a difference today.
Well, I think what you both operate on is a really deep faith in yourself as an individual, but yourselves as partners, and trust. And that's trust in yourself and as partners, but also trust in life and the process, and just that you're doing the right thing. So faith and trust are important to both of you.
And what I've
Absolutely.
And what I find is really interesting is there's no way I would have known my path to where I am today. But looking back, everything makes sense in sequence. And I think that's the fascinating thing. It's like, how am I doing this
Interesting.
job?
Yeah.
Why do I have this project? And I go, because it built on this one, and this one, and that one.
Yeah.
And it all makes sense that what I'm doing right now is what I should be doing. And I don't know if other people feel that way, but looking forward, I don't know where I'm going right now. I know where I think I should go, but I'm just letting spirit or events steer me.
Mhm.
That sounds rudderless. It's not.
You're open.
I'm very ruddered and very directive, but you know.
Well, I think that we just bought a piece of land, and we're going to be building our own house. And I think that's going to be an amazing experience for us, because I think that architecture is art. And it's like if you can imagine, what we have are we have clients, and those clients allow us to do the practice of architecture. And the most successful and rewarding projects that we've done are with clients that have completely trusted us. And it's like if you think about any kind of art, it's like a painter, and you commission them to do, a painting for your living room or your fireplace, and you give them some direction. Like I really want to see a meadow and a pasture, and I want to be able to see trees, and so you give them, and I want light, so you give them the kind of parameters of what you're hoping for. So you're not going to go into the artist studio and say, geez, I need more red. I want more red, because the artist knows that you only want to put so much red in your painting. So when we have clients who trust us in the process and in our results, they give us the program, and they trust us. We, through our awareness, through our skill, we give them something that time and time again they've come back to us and said, this is just amazing.
This is just what we wanted.
Lined up exactly.
This is it,
Yeah.
right.
And maybe sometimes I didn't even know what they wanted.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But you had a deeper understanding and you brought it.
Yeah, and so we
And
are
they brought
very,
us their parameters.
Yeah.
They told
Right.
us what they wanted to achieve, but they didn't tell us how to do it.
Right.
Which is
very
pretty
intuitive.
important. Yeah.
We really have that intuitive response. So this is ultimately, we've wanted to do this for 20 years, and now we have the opportunity. We're going to do this for ourselves and build something. And who knows what it's going to look like,
Right.
Who knows?
Enjoy the process.
So we're going to have the same concerns as our clients. We're going to have a budget that's going to feel really tight.
Yeah.
But we're not going to push ourselves on the schedule, same schedules the clients give us, which are usually like, do this in 6 months for design and take 6 months to 9 months for construction or more if it's a bigger project. We're saying, okay, we're not going to start construction for 2 years. We're not going to force ourselves to be confined in this creative process, which is going to be really exciting.
Because
but we still have to do the budget of how much it costs. It's going to be very constricted.
But so much of the joy is going to come in that process for us, because we don't have any constraints in the design process.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That sounds wonderful.
It is.
So your website is, do you know it?
www.barbawheelock.com.
Okay. And I know I'm just getting this voice to ask this question, but I keep seeing young adults that may need mentoring or job shadowing or to learn more about architecture. Are you available for that?
We do that.
We're doing that right now.
Mhm.
We have a student from Baxter School for Technology, Science, the charter school, who's here every Friday. So we usually just take one on a year, so it's not, we really can't manage more than one person. And hopefully he's getting a lot out of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
He's applying for architecture schools now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
So if there's a parent out there and your son or daughter may want to talk with someone briefly
Okay,
about architecture.
Of course. Love that.
that's great.
Well, we could talk more, and I'm really, really grateful for your time. I know that it's busy, and I'm glad that we lined up for today.
Great.
And you have great passion, you have great wisdom, and your joy for creating community and promoting social change is palpable. It runs deep, and we need more of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much.